Okay, welcome to Elevator World's webinar series. I am T. Bruce McKinnon, the Vice President of Elevator World, and your host for today. Today's webinar is presented by Kings 3, and the topic is Elevator Phone Monitoring, Handling the Challenges and Liabilities as an Independent Contractor. In today's webinar, presenter Kevin Rippentrop, Partner Program Manager, will help you to find the ideal elevator phone solution. Kings 3 engineers, manufactures, installs, and maintains emergency phones. They currently monitor more than 70,000 emergency phones 24/7 across the United States as well as Canada. Kings 3 was founded in 1989 and is a well-known name in the elevator industry for providing excellent customer service. During today's presentation, I'd like to encourage you to post your questions in either the question and answer section or the chat box. After the presentation, we'll be happy to answer any of your questions posted. Kevin, you may begin the presentation.
All right, thanks, T. Bruce. Well, welcome everybody for joining us. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. So I've got a few slides here that I'd like to go over and just kind of lay out, like T. Bruce said, some of the challenges and whatnot from a monitoring standpoint. We know the OEMs all have their solutions, and it's one of those things where an independent needs a solution as well. And so with some of the code changes and other things coming up here, we thought it'd be good to just kind of go over these. So the way that we're going to kind of lay this out is I'm just going to go over a few of the different approaches that are probably very traditional and something that you all are very familiar with, and just kind of lay those out, talk about some of the pros and cons of those and what you might be finding yourself running into, and then really try to understand what other solutions are out there and things to consider. So very common approach is as you have your customers, you sign on new service agreements, that you program those phones to call your office. And like I said, while this has probably been the go-to solution for many years, still does come with some challenges. So the liability of having that elevator phone ring your front desk, just right there, now that's your issue when that phone call comes in. And if you use a third-party answering service at 5 o'clock, which is also very typical, now you've got an added risk there, because that's a third party that you've hired to take that entrapment call. So lots of things can come up. I mean, whether that's training on your end, as people come and go, the person answering the calls at that front desk, do you have training protocols in place to be able to make sure that you're handling that call properly? But most importantly, when that does go to after hours, are you getting the right information? Usually the bar is set pretty low on the after hours answering services, because they're just relaying information. So when that call comes in, is that person trained to know, hey, it might be a service call, it might be an entrapment call? Are they getting the correct information? We hear this a lot. Are they able to replay that message that's programmed into the phone, giving the critical information to relay to your tech? So those are really the big things. And then as these code requirements come in, we'll talk a little bit about that here later in this webinar on the new code, but just staying on top of what's required and what you can and can't ask in an entrapment call and things like that. So so this, while again a very traditional approach, is really littered with lots of areas where things can go south. And on top of it, probably most of you are not charging for this service, which adds to the frustration a little bit. On-site security is another thing. We see it, more in the commercial side of things, where they might have 24-hour security personnel on site. Doesn't happen a lot, but it's not uncommon at all for them to say, well, we'll just have the elevator phones ring our security desk. And while that might be a perfectly good option in most situations, lots of things can come up where that can cause some challenges. So whether that's power loss in the building, and how do they have their backup set up? Are they tested? if it's a large scale emergency, throughout the city, natural disaster, things like that, what processes do they have? As far as the manpower goes, if that's a third party security company, which oftentimes it is, it's typically not the employees of the building or the management company. Are they trained properly? How are they going to handle the entrapment call? Do they keep you in the loop? That's important as well. So we work a lot in buildings like this, as maybe it's a rollover after the call or the phone rings. After 3 rings, maybe it forwards to a monitoring company, things like that. There's many things that we can put into place in this, but is it a perfect solution? No, but it can be the first line of defense with some other added securities put in place then as well. And of course, with the code requirement changes, are they staying on top of that? Do they even know, what to look for in the building? Lots of things there to consider. And then we're all familiar with the 911 option. I'm still amazed after the years at Kings 3 here that from coast to coast, this is a really widespread topic because, some areas, yeah, it's 911 for everybody. We just program all the phones to go to 911. In other areas, they avoid it like the plague. And that's typically the case, but it is still kind of a wide brushstroke there of how people program the phones to 911. These 911 centers are starting to, struggle here as of late. They're typically underfunded, especially in the rural areas, but they're not going to really ask too many questions. If they have an entrapment call, they don't have a call list to, dispatch you to go and take a look, or they're just sending the fire department and they're coming with the jaws of life. And now all of a sudden you've got an issue with your customer there on who's, going to replace these doors, and, all of that starts to surface. So, while it might be a cheap and easy thing to do, typically on the back end is where you're going to wish that wasn't the route that you went. So things to consider. We're going to kind of break this into, a few different categories here. But with the risk and liability, like it says here, is your current solution putting you or your customer or both of you at risk? Well, those first two, other than 911, really is putting you both at risk. It opens up, if there is an issue with an entrapment and litigation does come down the pike, do you have a recording of that call? Can we really prove what happened? The lawyers are just going to put everybody's name on there that had their hand in there, so it's really hard to avoid when it comes to that, unless if somebody else is completely dealing with the entrapment. So it's, while it doesn't happen a lot, if it's ever happened to you, how bad that can be and where you can really find yourself in some trouble. So that recording of the calls is always pretty critical. The cost to your customers. We're seeing coast to coast, the copper lines are going up in price. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people nodding their head right now, even though I can't see you. It is happening. And the reason why it's happening is that these telco companies are getting out of the business of maintaining copper lines. And so the way that they're doing that is by increasing the price. So we see it all the time. It is on a weekly basis where we'll hear somebody from our sales teams in the local markets. Hey, I just ran into a church that was paying, $650 a month in North Carolina. We just had this happen not too long ago. Those stories are very common. While it's not everybody paying hundreds of dollars for a line, I would say most people are paying close to that $100 a month for a phone line now. It obviously depends on the area. So that cost is going up. And right now, typically people are having one dedicated line into each cab. And so if you're doing a free monitoring service for them, that free service is costing them, in essence, $100 a month per phone line. And that, again, is only getting more and more expensive. So, are they using cellular? Are you using any type of cellular options right now? I know that VoIP is becoming very popular, especially new construction and mod. They're not even bringing those copper lines in. But is VoIP really a great solution? Hey, I'm getting, I've got 20 lines coming in here and it's costing me $5. Yeah, you can find a VoIP phone, but now you're tied into that network that the building has. So internet goes down all the time. It's not uncommon at all. So while it might be a super cheap solution, if power's out in the building and there's no internet going on, what good is that solution if you can't talk to that entrapped person? So, for us at Kings 3, cellular is by far our number one go-to, especially in that situation, but just in general, because those cellular networks have gotten so reliable. And for the cost, you can have an entire monitoring solution for half of what a copper line is. So from a financial standpoint, other options for the customer are just so much more valuable. Broken phones, phones break, all the time. It's typically not a great situation for either the service company or the customer. If a average phone, I don't know, I guess we see them anywhere from $800 to $1,200, depending where you're at in the country, to replace a phone. Typically not a great money maker for the service company, and the customer doesn't like paying those bills either. So it's not really a great solution there. So having a monitoring company that would warranty the phones, to take that cost out of there, it's just more cost savings to the customer, which ends up being more of a feather in your hat than two. Wasted time and resources. This is big, so if you are sending a technician out there to fix that phone or troubleshoot dial tone, I mean, that happens all the time. Even at King Street, we're not immune to that, but it happens. Is that technician better spent, troubleshooting an elevator that's not working, that's down, instead of replacing a phone, or trying to meet the AT&T guy on site and he doesn't show up and you're going back and forth. I know this is something that you all run into. There's a better way, to not have that be a time suck on your end for the resources that you need to just get day-to-day work done. And typically, at a company, you're going to have some guys that are really good at troubleshooting phones and some guys that aren't. And so now you're in that situation where you're trying to schedule the guys that can take care of that, and maybe they're better off doing other things. So it just kind of ends up being a black hole here of wasted resources when other options might be available. Code changes. I'm going to just briefly touch, especially with this 2019 code that's introducing video and text messaging. Is the way that you're doing things right now, is that going to be code compliant moving forward? I know from state to state, the ASME code can really vary, but 2019 is out. I think it's in roughly, I don't know, 8 or 9 states. There's several more coming on January 1st. But that's something to really consider. Are you going to be able to handle that? Is now the time to kind of really be looking at how you're dealing with phones in general? Because if your state's not adopting 2019, will it be soon? And now is that a big, headache to take care of down the road? Whereas, maybe there's some things that you can consider now to make that transition a lot more smooth before there's a deadline, looming in front of you. I like to show this because, it just kind of gives you, graphically, you can see where this trend is going. So these are requirements as far as the elevator or the emergency phone is concerned. But you can see, as every code base comes out, just over the last 20 years, there's more and more requirements from a code standpoint on these phones. And we all know that, even, if you're 2004, you can jump to 2019, and have to, be compliant with these. This is where, working with a company that, can stay on top of these from a phone standpoint, is going to be just that much more value to you as well. But definitely, as we see these codes coming out, they're getting more and more detailed. And, for these, last two here for 2019 with the text messaging and the video, that much more complicated as well. From 2000 to 2016, you could take those calls at your front desk and use an after hours answering service. But, what are you going to do now with the video and the text messaging requirement? We talk about a training challenge, just the way it was before. Now you've got different systems in place and different requirements and that kind of thing. So it really starts to flip this traditional approach upside down and almost make it something that isn't going to be something that the elevator company can do internally, especially if you've got an after hours answering service there. Again, on this new code here, this is kind of a little bit of the Wild West, especially some of you that are in states, North Carolina really comes to mind, Georgia, Colorado, we're starting to see it in many areas. If you are going to do a solution yourself, you almost have to develop a product line. You need hardware, you need a phone, you need a messaging system, encryption between the building and your site. And it just really puts it in a spot where an elevator service company isn't going to be able to manage this. So there are a couple of solutions out on the market right now. Just to really quickly touch on that so you know how it ties into monitoring is, the MAD GAL solution is out there. They have an integrated panel. They have a standalone system. Janus has a standalone system. They're working with innovation on an integrated panel there. So, as a monitoring standpoint, there's a hardware component that's coming from the fixture companies. And then there's, hey, is the monitoring company that I'm using going to be able to help me here? And that's where Kings 3, like our approach is, hey, we're going to be neutral in this. We'll integrate to all the solutions that are out there. But as far as an elevator service company, you can buy whatever fixture you want that has the 2019 technology in there for the video and the text messaging. And we just want to make sure that our phones work in conjunction. That's really what it is, and that we can monitor that. So our phones don't change. We've gotten a couple of calls. Hey, do you have your 2019 phone? No, there's not a 2019 phone. We just want to make sure that our equipment works side by side. So whatever fixture that you use, should the customer want to use Kings 3, great. We want to be able to monitor that video and text messaging side and pull that all together in one recorded file. So that's something to consider as for those of you in the States where 2019 is a little bit more front and center. What does that total solution look like? Because there's many different components now coming together here with that. All right, so from Kings 3 standpoint, we would encourage that whatever monitoring company you use, is it all inclusive? Is it including the hardware, and does it take that liability and the headache of doing the phones, or dealing with the phones on a day-to-day basis, off your plate, so that your techs can be doing other things? Is it a private dispatch center? Meaning, are they outsourcing the monitoring, or are they doing everything in-house so that they can properly train their people and have systems in place and redundant facilities and all of that. We talked about the recording of the calls. It's easy to do an audio recording, but now with this new code, you got to do a screen capture of the text messaging going on and the video recording and putting that all together so that, should we need to refer back to what actually happened in the cab, that we've got something in place that we can do that easily. Language translation, that's big. We, I think, are up to, we're north of 170 different languages with Kings 3. When people are entrapped, or during an entrapment, they tend to resort back to their native language, so it's important to be able to do that. If you're taking those calls at your front desk, have you ever run into that where, you're not able to communicate? Now, talk about a liability issue there if you can't even, understand the language. Are they, keeping you informed? Do you know when there's an entrapment and that you're getting those notification calls and emails and that kind of thing? And then, big for your customers is, can you save them money? We're all going into a time period right now where we need to save money, wherever we can, and these management companies that are running these buildings are looking for cost savings however they can, and to work, together with a building to try to save them money, save the headache, on your end. that just creates a win-win-win for everybody involved. So lots of things to consider there. And then I'm kind of wrapping up here. I'm right up on my time. Then we want to leave time for questions here too. But we work with elevator service companies all across the country. Like I said, we kind of coin ourselves as the service company for the independents, for the monitoring company for the independents, because the OEMs do have their own call centers as well. So so if that's something that you want to talk more about, we can definitely take that offline. But like I said, I'm right up here on the time, so we want to make sure that we save some time for questions. So Bruce, I'll see if you've got anything there.
Yeah, looks like we've got a few questions. I've got a question myself. That's interesting. I was wondering, is Kings 3 unique in that they sell, the phone as well as the monitoring? Are there other competitors out there offering monitoring services as well, or is that unique to Kings 3?
Yeah, no, that's good. There's nobody to the size. Like oftentimes we ask, well, who are competitors to Kings 3? Really, the competitors are the after-hours answering services that are out there. The hundreds of little guys there. ESRM was a company in Florida. We acquired them. I guess it's been a couple of years here now. That they were, I guess, maybe the closest, but they were kind of more around Florida. So for us, it's like, even to kind of clarify on selling the phone, for us, the equipment's part of our package, so it's kind of like getting the router with your internet service at home. It's a service and equipment that we bring to the table. So and then that's why we warranty the equipment too. We're in the business of monitoring phones, not fixing them. So consequently, we put out a nice piece of hardware there to facilitate that, because if there is ever an issue, we're going to cover that 100%.
Nice. Okay, let's look here. We've got some good questions here from, looks like Brian Moran is inquiring about the 2019 requires visual in addition. How does Kings 3 support the visual aspect of the new code?
Yeah, so like I was mentioning before, the hardware components coming from the fixture side or a standalone option. Kings 3 is not going to get into that business because we don't want to compete with fixture companies at all. What we want to do is be able to monitor it. So say, for instance, whether it's Innovation or MAD and GAL, their solution, you're going to have that equipment in the purchase of your fixture. That'll have the display, it'll have the camera. And then what Kings 3 does is we would work with you on the install side. We would talk to the building owner or whoever we're working with there. If the customer is already a current Kings 3 customer, we would just work together. Okay, here's when our install is going. We make sure from a monitoring standpoint that we've got our phone in there, and then we do the test with the video and the text messaging, make sure everything's good. There hasn't been many. I mean, when I say many, we only know of a couple of installs in the country with this new code. So it's new for everybody. We're going to probably change a couple of things as we do a couple of installs, but to directly answer that question, the hardware piece outside of the phone, so the text messaging and the video come from the fixture company, and then Kings 3 will just work side by side with that to be able to do the full monitoring though for the customer. So we'll do the phone monitoring, the text messaging, and the video. So like for instance with MAD, with their solution, we have a really tight integration on our back end, meaning if somebody installs a MAD fixture, when there's an entrapment, they hit that button. That video and text messaging is really integrated to our back-end monitoring software. So our operators see it right on the same screen and all of that. With the Janus solution, we can still monitor it. It's not as deep of an integration, but we can still monitor it, get the text messaging and the video. And so as we progress, we'll do more of those integrations. Like I said, we want to be able, whether you're using PTL or Innovation or whoever, for us, we don't really care. We just want to be able to, if the customer wants to use Kings 3 to do the monitoring, that we're going to be able to monitor that elevator from a technical standpoint. And I'm happy to, if anybody wants to reach out to me on the 2019 code, I know it's kind of a hot topic, and we can get pretty deep in the woods. We've got a whole presentation just on that, but if anybody wants to, really get down into some details and that kind of thing, happy to take those calls anytime.
Yeah, everybody that attending, all contact and everything will be in the follow-up email for Kevin. So you guys can certainly feel free to reach out to him on any further questions. But we look like we've got a number of good questions here. You may have touched on some of this, Kevin, but let's just make sure. It looks like says Kings 3 achieving 2019 integration with third-party text and video solutions. You mentioned recording. How do you do the recording?
Yeah, it's easy, right? I would like to say that. Yeah, it really did change things a lot for us because, like I said, the audio recordings were really simple. Well, I mean, it was just what we've done since day one, so that process was in place. So now, to bring these other technologies in, it's been, it was definitely a challenge, once this new code came out, and then, we're reliant on, the fixture companies, what solutions are they putting out there? So it's been, a team effort as we've started to work with more and more companies there on being able to do the monitoring. But yeah, for us, I mean, we have to be able to provide a complete picture of what went on during that entrapment. So now it's marrying that audio call to a screen capture for the text messaging to, that video feed as well, so that when we provide that file to the building, so, should there be a litigation situation, they need to have that they have an all-encompassing file. So we've got that worked out from our end, but as more solutions come out, we'll have to do that for every solution that's out there so that we can have a complete file for them.
Right. Also, you may have covered this, but it looks like John's asking about can Kings 3 monitor devices by other manufacturers?
We can. So in working with a service provider, independents like everybody on the call here, we have a couple of different options. So we monitor other manufacturers' phones all the time. Typically, it's not something that we go out to buildings to sell. It's more of because we want to put in our turnkey solution there. There's a lot of reasons for that I'll mention here, but maybe you're a company and you've got 300 customers that you just want to right away not monitor the phones for whatever reason. Maybe it's a liability thing and you just don't want to take any of those calls. We can monitor, if it's a Tissen phone or if it's a Vortec phone, it doesn't really matter. We call that our monitor only option. And it's really just meant to be a short-term bridge. We can reprogram, 80% of the phones remotely. So we'll even take care of that piece for you. There might be some that for whatever reason we can't do remotely, or there's an issue with the phone or whatnot that your techs might have to reprogram the phone. But it is an option. Where the Kings 3 solution really comes into play is that, it's got a phone in the cab and a dialer in the telco room. And the phone is really just a dumb phone. It is just a communication device. The dialer is really what does all of our work. But in a Kings 3 installation, all of that information, the location information, is stored digitally on the phone. So we don't listen to a voice recording or anything like that. That's why a Kings 3 connection is oftentimes a lot faster, because when they hit the button in the cab, the information pops up on our operator's screen. We're not listening to the location or anything like that. We go straight into talking with the entrapped person. So that combination of our hardware is what allows us to do that. And then our dialer provides constant power to the phone. We're not using phone line power. Another, big issue when you're troubleshooting phones on site, if you don't have constant power or battery backup, all that's handled by that dialer. So that solution in general is what makes it a better installation, and subsequently, we're not having to send out, our techs to troubleshoot those, because it's oftentimes a little bit better. So we're using the existing travel cable, down to the phone. Even with our cellular installation, it's not a wireless solution, because that oftentimes is not great, getting a wireless signal into a voiceway. It's cellular. So that cellular board is in the telco room. It then converts it to an analog signal that we use to get down into the cab using the existing travel cable.
Yeah, I think that answers another question talking about, how do you accommodate the cellular signal in basements? You guys have got a solution for that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's tricky. It's cellular. It's not perfect, but it's come a long, long ways. And everything that we do is 4G. In fact, we're going through. We have, I don't know how many thousands of cellular installs out there. I mean, all the way back to 2G is when we've been doing cellular installations. But I think it's T-Mobile right now going through obsolescence of 3G, and then next year we'll be doing all the AT&T. So we use Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile as our provider. So whatever is the strongest in that area is what we're going to use. So we're doing upgrades now to 4G. Everything for the last 18 months roughly has been all 4G installs, and we'll continue to move forward with that. But yeah, it's a challenge, especially like, New York or, places where we've got, where cellular is a little bit of an issue. We run into those too. We've got lots of options there, 3 different carriers. We can put that antenna on the outside of the building if we need to, lots of things there from our tech side to try to make that be as good as possible. But for Kings 3, we guarantee all of our cellular installs, meaning, if we have a customer sign up and we go out to do an installation, if we have a tech out there, all day long, and we can't get our minimum requirement for a cell signal, the customer doesn't pay a dime. That's on us.
Okay. I know you mentioned in the presentation about the cost of, the hard phone line. How does the cost compare? I mean, there's cost to cellular, so how does that work out? Ryan's kind of asking.
Yeah. So our most expensive option is our cellular option. Like I said, we use that, that's our solution for a VoIP solution as well, because, we can control that network, and we don't have to tie into anybody's there. But, if they're paying, like I said, $100 a month for a phone line is really not uncommon. Now they've got, so our cellular solution in that situation is $44 a month. So less than half of what they're paying. So for that $44, they're getting, warranty on their phone. They can fix their cost at $44. The only thing that we ever charge a customer for, outside of that is when we have to replace the backup battery. I think it's $29 that we do on the next service call. So they can really fix their costs, which is nice. They don't get the replacement phone charges down the road. They don't have to worry about their copper lines going up in price. And oftentimes, even if their budgets are set for the year, we can come in and, January and be budget negative for them, show them some cost savings right away, whether they have one elevator or 10, it doesn't really matter. 50% savings is 50% savings. So it's typically something that we can get their attention with right away. And then, like I said, the cost savings is one thing, but just the value in the monitoring service. I mean, our operators are medically certified. We can walk them through the first responder situations if they're having a panic attack or a heart attack or whatever it might be. We've delivered a baby in the elevator before, so these things do come up. So the value on that $44, I think, is even that much greater than the cost savings that they're going to see.
Talking about that topic, looks like Alvin's asking about, is that 44 per elevator?
It is per elevator. Yep. So just like their line charges are per elevator, our charges are per elevator as well.
Okay. Interesting question here. Vanessa's asking about, in your opinion, should it be the responsibility of the elevator company to provide monitoring, or the actual customer? I'm assuming probably the building owner.
Yeah, so I mean, if you kind of trace this back, we go back to ADA legislation in what was it, the late 70s, where the elevator started, or I'm sorry, the phone started to come into the elevator. It really just kind of got thrown on the elevator service company to say, well, it's your elevator, it's your phone problem, right? And so there's been that debate, ever since. It's been a long time. So I think the best way to answer that is just, how does Kings 3 work? We work direct with the end user. So like even with, from our partner program standpoint, it's really just a referral based situation. So for Kings 3, we do feel that that's a building owner responsibility, or a management company's responsibility. So when we talk to them, we talk to them as if it's separate from the elevator, in the sense of, they're not the same. That's why we work with elevator companies, because oftentimes there is that, well, let me check with my elevator company, make sure that we're all set. But if we can go in and have that one-on-one relationship with the building owner and provide them the cost savings in conjunction with working with an elevator company. You guys bring us to the table. We show them the cost savings. We then take over everything to do with the phone. So if they were to ever call you and say, hey, I don't have dial tone, or my PLV is going off, or whatever it might be, you say, hey, call Kings 3. And for us, we have techs all over, and depending on if they have to be a licensed, elevator tech, that's what we're sending. If we have to pull permits, we take care of all of that. So it really does relieve the service company from having to deal with the phones, altogether. But yet, we're working together to make sure that we've got a good solution for the customer, really, at the end of the day.
Good deal, Kevin. We've really got a lot of terrific engagement here, guys. Looks like an interesting question here from John. He's got a large client with over 500 elevators, and they currently monitor all elevator phones themselves. He's asking, how would this large institution with multiple properties, many properties, monitor, and transition, I think, into the 2019 code with video, text independently of the elevator company or a third-party service?
Yeah, it's I wish I had more information. I'll tell you what I know. We see so far the conversations about the 2019 code really coming between us and an elevator company rather than from the end user building, because they just don't know about it. It's not something that they stay on top of. But now maybe they got some indication in their state or whatnot. And sometimes it does happen, but typically we're having those conversations, with the folks that are on this call, because there are many components to this. And really the first component is the fixture company. So like, if I were to get a call and say, hey, I've got to get a quote, done for, next year for a mod that we're doing, and it's going to be the 2019 code, can you send me some pricing? Well, really the pricing is, you need to reach out to whoever you're using for your fixture company. So that's Innovation, MAD. Those are the two right now. I know PTL is working on something here as well, but it's getting a 2019 code compliant panel per se first, to make sure that we've got those hardware components in there, and then for working with Kings 3, we would then work together and talking with the customer. Okay, this is the route that you're going for your fixture. Here's where Kings 3 would come in from a monitoring standpoint, make sure that we've got everything there. So like in this situation with the 500 elevators, that's going to be an undertaking. So I'm going to imagine they're doing mod maybe on these 500 and the different buildings and whatnot. But that would be a situation where we could just talk initially up front, find out what are those missing pieces here that I just identified, and then talk to the customer then about a comprehensive solution there, and who's doing what in that. So like I said, right now it's new construction and mod, so it hasn't been coming up too often, but there's inevitably going to be these big installations going on out there, and unfortunately right now we just don't have a whole lot of experience, and nobody does. Like I said, I'm only aware of 2 installations. I'm sure there's a few more, but I mean, it just goes to show you it's just now starting to hit, but lots of quotes out there from what we've heard. So
talk a little bit about the battery backup. There's some questions in regards to that, Kevin. How that works, how that keeps everything working.
Sure. So our battery backup, like I mentioned, is in our in the dialer, which is typically installed in the telco room. So that's where we'll tie in to the elevator phone. So I think code says something like 4 hours. Our batteries are rated to 24 plus. And so that's really what feeds power then to the phones in a power outage situation. And then we'll get notified when that battery is not performing, because we do tests in the background too. Like, if we don't hear from a phone in 30 days, meaning nobody's hit the button in the cab within 30 days, we do an automatic ping out to the phones to test dial tone. That's really the only thing that we can do. We encourage our customers to test the phones as often as possible. if they can. But inevitably they don't, they forget or whatever. Maybe it's just not a high use elevator. So if we don't hear from a phone for whatever reason, we do that in the background. If we get dial tone back, that 30-day time frame resets. But if it doesn't, if we find out, okay, there's not dial tone there, will an automatic email get sent to our contact at the building saying, elevator 2 is not responding for dial tone. Can you please go and do a test call? If they don't do a test call within 48 hours, then we have somebody call them and walk through the testing process just to make sure that everything's working. So that's just a way for us to be proactive on that. So same thing with the battery backup too. We want to always make sure that our stuff is working when it's on there. That's really a liability for us. We definitely don't want to have any situations out there where we've got our equipment installed and it's not working. So, but anyways, that battery backups in the cab, I'm sorry, in the telco room in our dialer, and that provides the power to the phones. Then.
Very good. Looks like we've got another question here on addressing phone phreaking, which is breaking into the phone remotely.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with what that is. Tell us about it.
That's really funny because I don't know, it was probably 8 months ago I learned of this as well. So phone phreaking, for those of you who don't know, I don't know, I think this goes back, I could be wrong on this, but I think, maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more. It's probably been happening for longer, but there was a big article that came out around that time. And it's really, I don't know, hackers kind of just having fun in phones and in the elevator. And so what it is that, these phone lists, get distributed, somehow, and it gets into the hands of people who, just want to have fun with it. And so people will call into a phone and, start talking to people that are writing. And it's, I mean, I'm sure it was all ages, but I'm thinking of a bunch of 16-year-old kids, just having fun with this. Well, it's a big problem because they're taking over that phone and they, are, not, that phone's not able to be used for what it's intended for. And so, so if you just Google phone phreaking with, and you'll see some of these articles that are popping up. So it becomes a bit of a challenge. Like I'll give you a real life example of what we run into at Kings 3. Which is dialing back into the phone. Okay, so we have some guidelines in place where when we do an entrapment call and we're going to dispatch an elevator service company, let's say, instead of saying, well, hey, can you just give me the phone number to that phone? I'll just call them and see if I can walk them through getting out of the elevator before I send a technician, right? That's something that we don't do because of that reason, the phone phreaking instance out there. So it is a liability for us as well. And then a lot of times those phone numbers are protected, and a lot of times people are very free with them. So for us, what we do is we'll keep the technician on the call with us if they want to talk to the person in the cab. So in that way, they can go through, maybe a little bit more detail techniques of being able to get the doors to open and get them out safely than what we would do. We'll handle that way rather than saying, well, yeah, here's the phone number and that thing. So I laugh a little bit because I hadn't heard it come up. I had recently, learned of this phenomenon myself, but it is definitely a thing, and unfortunately, it's something we got to talk about. But we put some processes in place, not only with how we handle entrapment, but also the security that we have on our phones to help prevent that.
I guess hacking can happen in any form these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, looks like we've had a lot of engagement on your presentation, Kevin, and we'll be certain to save these other questions that maybe we didn't get to, so you guys can reply back. Certainly, you can reach out to Kevin. So we're gonna wrap the webinar up. Just want to thank you, Kevin, for this excellent and very informative presentation about the elevator phone monitoring challenges. For all of you guys attending, you can learn more, obviously, at kings3.com. Each of you will receive a follow-up email that will have all contact information, as well as a link to this recorded webinar. So thanks everyone for attending, and really appreciate it. Kevin, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well, T. Bruce. Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, y'all have a good day.
You
Thank
too.